In this video, I'm going to walk you through the use of a servo motor that you might want to use for your project. Okay, a servo motor is pretty easy to use. I'll show you the code here in a second, but you can program this to rotate through a certain number of degrees. We'll see how that works. Okay, it also turns out that the parts I gave you for the truss, you'll recognize that's a truss plastic part. It fits neatly onto the shaft of the servo. So you could imagine using this in a number of different ways for your project. You could use the servo to rotate and let go of a rubber band, for example, that would initiate a launch. You could also use the servo to control like the angle of launch. There's lots of ways you can do that. Okay, so this circuit's hooked up to where I can control the servo with the infrared remote. All right, so you see we have the usual Arduino board, and I added this little small board because we're going to need to connect more than one thing to 5 volts and ground. Okay, so let's take a look. Turns out the servo motor needs to connect between 5 volts and ground, and so does the infrared sensor. Okay, so in this circuit I made a little row here that's going to represent 5 volts and another row that you can connect to ground. I'll give you the wiring diagram for this. Okay, so it works pretty easy. You can program this. I'll walk you through the code, but you can, I can't hold this and make it rotate, so I'll just make it rotate on the desk. All right, so you press a button on the remote and you can see the shaft rotates on the servo. So if you mounted this to something on your project, you could use it to control an angle or to initiate a launch. Okay, so there's that. Let me walk you through the code. Through the code to get the servo motor and the infrared remote to coordinate so you could use this for your project. Okay, so I have given you the file called servo_ir.ino. You can put that into a folder. I have this in, if you look, I have this in my Arduino directory. Okay, so Arduino, and then I can click on this and you see I have this folder called server_ir. All right, so I can load this. All right, and one of the things you'll need is the servo motor library, so you can check to see if that's installed. Okay, but if it's not, remember that you can go to include library, add a zip. Okay, so we'll do that. I'm not going to actually hit the button to install it because mine's already installed, but add zip. Okay, it comes back and it asks you to look for the location, so you find your Arduino files. Okay, so for me, that's under Documents, Arduino, and then I know this comes with the starter kit, so I click through here and I find the servo, okay, and there's servo.zip, so I can hit that, click on that, and it would install the servo library. So you might not need to do that. You might already have that installed, but if you find that the IDE complains, go ahead and install the servo library. Okay, so once you have that, you have code written that you can modify. All right, so what I've done here is I've given you a couple of button presses that are already programmed. Okay, so you load this code exactly as it is, and you open this, and now you can add buttons by adding case statements here. All right, so just like you did with the project where you use the gearbox, you can program other remotes. All right, and then what I've done here is if you press the volume minus button, it will first move the shaft to 0 degrees. I put some delays in here because if you try to change the shaft too fast, it doesn't seem to respond to those commands. Okay, so from there you can program different rotations. Like here's a 30-degree rotation. Here's a 90. Like I said, you should put some delays between. You can experiment with that, see how much delay you need. It's going to kind of depend, I think, on what you connect it to. All right, but servo.right actually makes this rotate to different degree angles. And You can add buttons by adding case statements. Just keep it exactly like this. So you would copy this. All right, if you wanted to add a button, you'd copy this, paste it. So I'll show you. Copy it. Paste it. All right, so that's a different case, but because it was copied, you would need to change the code. All right, and there's a different code for every button that you press. Okay, so if you wanted the button for 1, you would have to look up that code for 1, which we did in a different project, and change this value. All right, then of course you can make this rotate to different degree angles, and this should respond the way you program it. Okay, so I'm going to delete that back, but that lets you program it in different ways to make your launcher project work. All right, so from there, it should just be a matter of uploading this, where we'll compile and upload, and then we can hit different buttons to make this rotate through different degree angles. Okay, so hopefully that helps, and good luck using that for your project.